Most of you are familiar with these statistics. Our impact to the GDP, I'll move quite fast. Anytime we talk of impact, we look at consumption of cement, and cement is a key ingredient in the construction industry. And so you can see how it has been going. Since Kibaki government, there has been a skew towards civil works. And so you can see the increment in the length of paved highways. And the component of the development budget of the government of Kenya. So I'll share this in the interest of time. I'll not go through each of the statistics because there are many I have. So that is the COVID situation in Kenya as per yesterday. The worldwide one is as of 25th of August. So the message here is COVID is here to stay. You just have to find a way of coexisting and being careful as you can. These figures are going up every day. By the time these figures, the figure of 47 I just changed last evening. It was 45 or 40, I think. I had a figure of 25th of August. Now you can see. So that's the impact of the pandemic or the industry performance. You can see what has remained on cost, just 7%. The stalling, almost 30%. And the slowdown, most of our projects are on slowdown, 63%. And this is from the AK research. So from NCA research of 2021, 52% ongoing, suspended 32, and terminated 16. Now this table is showing you the stability of big and small projects, which is also related to financing and the resources of the developers and contractors. So you can see the biggest effect is on NCA 6, 7, 8, which we term as small projects. This same applies to the ones which were completely stopped. You can see the biggest effect is on small projects. And we are now coming to business resilience. So these are people who maybe had no plan B in case of a pandemic or any other impact. That's the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, industry performance. This is AK, this is professionals. Demand for services, you can see that's the biggest. Less demand for consultancy services. Other consultants experience suspension of ongoing works. The other big one is supply chain. Here you can even say specifically China. We had been so skewed towards sourcing our construction materials from China. So when there was a disruption in the supply chain, the impact was very high. And then cancellation of tenders. The last one, delay in payment of works. This is common across professionals and contractors. So in summary, these are the challenges. You can add more if there's something missing here. The chief guest talked about the first one. development approvals, closure of the registry severally, price fluctuations, and because our business is about in person, I know some of you have tried to do virtual site meetings and how difficult it is. Even when you do a walkthrough with a camera, with the agent on site or the foreman on site, it really doesn't work as it used to before. So that has affected project progress. Almost everything we are doing in our office didn't finish in time. Some extending by one whole year. So I've talked about remote working and site meetings, talked about suspension of ongoing works, lack of funding or lack of materials. And of course, when there was movement limitations, access to labor also. And also, other contractors kept off labor because of cost of PPEs. Either you contravene the law or you stop the work. Travel policy I've mentioned. So that, again, is a summary of what AAKI had presented. So what did the professionals experience? In terms of new project, you can see 87% and decrease in orders or inquiries. Old projects 70%, new projects 70%. So that's a very high impact. You can see almost 75% incurred additional costs due to the effects of the pandemic. And those are the causes. You are all aware of transport costs, the fluctuations I've mentioned, PPEs, cost of labor, especially having to organize transport and less working hours. And of course, reduced cash flow. Others are taxation, cost of insurance, and exchange rates. You are all familiar with this. Again, that is from NCCI research. So what has been the source of funding during the pandemic? That's own developers' funds, insurance companies, financial institutions, injection of more capital by shareholders. You can see government is very small, and from family sources, business associates, just to complete your project or to move it to a level where you can stop. So that is very similar to what we had for consultants, 77-23. So what were the responses? Initially, this is more of NCA. Quality assurance services is a physical exercise. And so our teams were not able to monitor quality of works on the few sites which were not suspended. Partial reopening of services, and then we issued public notices giving guidelines on what to do. And that's what is in the fourth item there. The industry responses. And then the development of COVID-19 standards for sites. So these were causing additional costs. We talked of the PPEs, and so you're having 50% of the normal workers or less. Trying to have social distancing on site, we know how difficult that is, especially for some operations like concreting. We move on to number 4, sustainable strategies for business resilience. Since COVID, we've all been talking about business continuity, which is defined as a set of regulations, information, and actions that are well established by a business. The key word is before the occurrence of a disaster. You will see in other slides where we were in March last year in terms of business preparedness. Maybe just a few international firms who may have gone through this had a business continuity plan. The purpose is to ensure that during and after disaster, the business and employees continue to be productive. Now, developing business continuity plans, or BCP, involves impact analysis, identity of critical elements which an organization depends, and understanding the impact of losing these elements. Another keyword, resource allocation. So these are some of the aspects of business resilience. As we have mentioned, you saw the high percentage of supply chains. And we're talking about rebalancing, having not depending on one source. I think all of us during pandemic have learned that you need to move from single sourcing. You have a very, very reliable supplier, but he may have been affected or he may have closed. What do you do? So as we move forward, some of us have done it even without thinking, but now you have multiple sources of what you use in your business. And that's what the research found out, engaging with a smaller number of well-aligned organizations and incubate new supply sources. So the keyword here is flexibility and diversification. So diversified business models, those who had diversified their businesses were able to do better during the pandemic than those who had just one focused business. The previous speaker mentioned about digitization. I think now we are in the age of doing e-tenders. Quite a number of us in our office, we've done e-tenders. And it's the way to go. And the biggest challenge we are facing, because there are contractors here, is lack of uniformity in the platforms of which we want to do e-tenders. And there are IT experts here in the room. That's a big business at the moment. Making sure that if I send my document to appeal, first of all, it's going to open. That was almost half of the contractors would say, if I'm going to Kubwa. And then ability, having internal ability, people who can fill tenders online and return. So this is one area we have to work on. Papers must go. For an average BQ of an apartment, it may be 200, 300 pages. And you're inviting 10 people. So in the office you have somebody whose work is just papers, papers, papers. So in terms of consultancy, this now has been a saving. We do not have to make all these papers. We get engineering, architectural, we send to them as a backup to the BQ, replace and send back. So this is one area all of us here have got to embrace. The other one is financial. Everybody now has to have more financial discipline. And risk assessment. There are things we've been taking for granted as business people, not just in construction. So in one of the reference papers, you will see about risk-based thinking. Any task you want to undertake, just the way you do mentally here. If you want to leave this place going back to your office, first of all, you think, do I follow University Way? There may be riots, there may be jam. Do I follow Hulu Highway? There is construction going on. So in your business, in a bigger way, risk-based thinking is going to be also a big thing as we move forward. It is. Already all of us are now evaluating, and that's why you see there are less and less orders for construction services, because developers are thinking harder before committing. Am I going to get customers for my apartments, for my office block? If you must build, you have to think of how to build. It's not business as usual. The last one there, that's for financial people. The scenarios. You have to, as you get your loans from the banks, it is not as easy as before. Yeah? Now, workforce. Construction industry employs, the statistics vary so much, but we talk about 700 to 1 million workers. It is one of the easiest entry points for our school leavers to become a casual on a construction site. And we have been very labor intensive. But this is one area, as contractors, we have to rethink our business. First of all, big numbers, big exposure. I've been told I'm almost there, so I'll ask you to just read for yourself. So business resilience is asking you to have a smaller workforce, be innovative, so that there are tasks you can achieve with a lesser workforce. And one of them, I'll give an example of plaster. You may have seen some plaster machines which can do what 10 people can do with 2 workers. So already there will be social distance. You just put your materials, the thing will move up and down. And it's in use in very many other places except here, because here we are also slow to adopt to technology. So productivity and profitability. So investing in technology and innovative ways of working, improving productivity, efficiency, ultimately result in more profitable enterprises. So you'll have more savings for future resilience. There are very few companies who could pay their workers for 1 year. Very few in Kenya when the pandemic came. So there was massive layoffs. But these are some of the things we are saying that in future, your savings after you do your job, think about how can I sustain my workforce or a key workforce for a few months or 1 year before I get another job. So technology we've talked about. NCA is championing building information modeling. We've not done as much as we would want to do, but it's something we are thinking of very seriously. So you can see the difference between companies which had BCP and the ones which didn't have. The gap, the recovery gap is very big for those who didn't have BCP. Industry post-shock environment results for NCA survey. You can see all of them, if you look at the scale of 1 to 10, all these items you see there, they are below 5. So we have not been doing well. All these are areas of improvement. So this is the slide I talked about. It's also from AAK. Those who had a BCP, you can see most of us fell in the category of we are in the process of developing. Most did not have. So ask yourself where you are in this figure. If you do not have, the pandemic has shaken all of us. You need to have a BCP, whichever size of business you have. So those are the phases of building a business resilience, impact, survival, and recovery.